I'm really proud of my younger self for following her inner voice and listening to herself and taking the leap and having the courage to do so. I don't even know if I would do that today. So I'm really, really proud of that younger self of mine. Ended up, leaving medicine, and I went to McKinsey, and I basically became a management consultant doing straight business consulting for a number of years, just kind of thrown off the deep end and learned a lot about the business world.
Hey everyone, welcome to Leadership Rounds, a podcast shining a spotlight on exceptional clinician executives thriving and driving innovation at the intersection of business and healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. Reena Pande, and together we'll explore the wisdom and insights of great healthcare executives and craft a prescription for leadership success, one candid conversation at a time. Sheila, it is such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. As you know, we only recently actually got to know each other, but we have mutual friends, right, that have known us both for a long time, and I think have been trying for a very long time to get us connected. And I'll speak for myself. It just resonated. Like as soon as we met, I could tell like we were meant to know each other. And so anyway, I'm thrilled that you've been able to join us on the podcast. You're actually the first biotech CEO, physician leader that I have had on. So thrilled to have you with us.
Well, thank you so much, Reena. I know I feel like it was just meant to be. That's really exciting to hear that, I'm the first person of this type of phenotype that's on this podcast. That's great.
Yeah. Well, and as you know, like the goal here has been really to highlight and shine a really bright spotlight on phenomenal clinician executives in a variety of seats, CMO, CEO, chief commercial officer, et cetera, and to really show the world what we can be. We'll talk a little bit about some of the biases that sometimes are in existence for people like you and me. And part of the goal here is to start to peel away some of those biases about clinician leaders and the amazing roles that we can play and the contribution we can have. So let's get in. I am particularly excited to have you because you've just written a new book. And when I started to pour through the pages of the book, I just thought, yes, I agree with that. And I agree with that. And this makes so much sense. And that resonates so much. So I would love to get into the book, The Mirror Effect. But before we get into the book, I actually want to just hear your story. I'd love for listeners to just get the tale of Sheila and how you got from, a kid to medicine and from medicine to multi-time biotech CEO. So you tell the tale.
Well, great. Thank you so much again, Reena. And yeah, very excited to talk to you about the book and my journey. So I have a similar background probably to many people that you've spoken to. And definitely I can say it's true for the South Asian community. I grew up actually in the mid-Atlantic. I was born in Delaware, grew up in Southern New Jersey. And both my parents are clinicians, are both physicians. They came over from India in the 1960s when there was a shortage of physicians. And that's how they got their visas and joined residency programs. And I was told from a very young age that I was going to be a doctor. And that was it. There wasn't really any dialogue or discussion or like, what do you want to do when you grow up? It was just, this is what you're going to do. And that was my fate. And I kind of accepted it and thought, and also thought it was a great thing because I was pretty inspired by watching both parents, but especially my mom. She's such a great clinician and see her help patients and how she was just very, it was so rewarding, the work she did. So I was very excited to be a clinician as well. So I ended up going to 7-year medical program, trying to be as efficient out of the gate as possible because that was what I was going to do. And it was really through my indoctrination into medicine, really learning about, the science and then the training that we get as clinicians, right? It's like very much an apprenticeship model. I loved learning about the practice of medicine, but the actual doing it day to day, I found I wasn't as enthralled as I was in terms of, learning about it and studying it. And like, really, I thought it was just fascinating, the human body and all the pathology and physiology we were learning. But the actual kind of day-to-day implementation of medical practice wasn't resonating as much with me. Mm-hmm. So it was really during my fellowship years when I kind of was starting to come to terms with this, that maybe this isn't the right career for me, which was really challenging to even think about. And then started exploring other career avenues. So one of the biggest decisions I've ever made in my life was to actually leave being an academic clinician. I think I was very much identified with that role and that career. So, and as well as my family. So to say at that time, and at the time, this was many years ago, 30 years ago, like nobody was leaving medicine. Like that was kind of unheard of. So for me to kind of come up for air and say, wow, I think I want to explore other career opportunities and other career paths was not very readily accepted, I would say. So I had a lot of resistance, both familial and even with the medical world and my training environment to do that. But I did it. I'm really proud of my younger self for following her inner voice and listening to herself and taking the leap and having the courage to do so. I don't even know if I would do that today. So I'm really, really proud of that younger self of mine. Ended up, leaving medicine, and I went to McKinsey, and I basically became a management consultant doing straight business consulting for a number of years, just kind of thrown off the deep end and learned a lot about the business world. And what I liked about it was like getting an MBA, but very much while doing the work. So kind of getting an internship and an MBA like all together. And so I did that. And then from there, I decided I really wanted to go into biotech and get closer to my research roots and my clinical roots. So I decided to go to Genentech, which I thought was, what the best biotech company to work for at the time, joined them, and then ended up starting in the commercial organization, but joined R&D. I actually left commercial, went to R&D, which again was not really heard of for McKinsey consultants to go back to R&D. So I kept taking like the path, the road less traveled when I was at the fork in the road. And of course, sometimes many roads, but I kept kind of listening to myself and then pursuing what I thought would be best for me. And I had mirrors along the way, people who I kind of resonated with, who through that kind of role modeling, I would relate to and decide, well, this would be potentially better for me than another path. And I had that within R&D. I kind of felt myself really being more inspired by the R&D leaders and the commercial leaders. Not to say the commercial leaders weren't doing important work, but that's just not what I want to do day in, day out. So I ended up doing R&D work at Genentech, and then I ran immunology at BMS, and I got global pharma experience there. And then about 15 years ago, I went to small startups, and I've been in the San Diego ever since. And I've been really playing C-level executive roles, CEO roles, company founder roles, investor roles, board roles within this really thriving ecosystem.
I love it. It's such a wonderful career arc, and it's so interesting having read the book. Obviously, not obviously. Yeah, we'll talk about it. I heard it in three parts, or I ingested it in the three parts as it's laid out, right? And the first being, and we'll talk about this in more detail in a minute. The first being essentially know thyself, and it sounds like, though you kind of suggest that it was a later appreciation, that you have to sort of stop and shine that mirror on yourself first. I'm hearing it in your story coming out even earlier in your career, right? I mean, that you got through residency and fellowship and said in an era, as you're pointing out, that where it wasn't common to leap from academic medicine to anything external at all. Now it's far more common. You knew yourself back then enough to say, I got to try a different path, right? I mean, what did you see in yourself back then that let you make those leaps?
Yeah, it's been a fascinating journey. And to your point, like I spend so much time about knowing thyself in the book, the first 4 chapters, and holding up our own mirror. Because I came to the realization that I didn't know myself, later in life.
Right.
And that was so shocking. I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I was operating from this place of fear in my life. And that was just a kind of an eye-opening experience, and one that needed to be addressed, really for just happiness in general. And I think this is true for many women, and also people of color, and for men as well. I think the things I talk about, I do think are universal. They're not really industry specific or even gender specific. They're probably just, resonate with different personalities. And right. But what I found for myself personally, but that was the case. But if you do rewind to those earlier days, I think part of what gave me the courage to leave was I just didn't find where I really fit in. I was trying to fit into these different environments, and it just wasn't working. Like it wasn't clicking. And I think if it did click better, maybe I would have stayed. longer or tried to figure it out. But because I was experiencing this kind of this disassociation at times where I wasn't sure if it was the right environment for me or if I was the right person for that role, it was making me question kind of the environment, the broader environment I was in, and then giving me courage to say, well, I know what this feels like and looks like. And especially when I started doing it, day in, day out, I feel like you really need to get to that point. I tell like younger students and the next generations all the time, like, get experience, because you're not going to know until you're in the role, like what it feels like for you.
Yeah.
I do think it's very much a feeling as well as a thinking thing. So I think part of my courage came from me not fitting in to the mold, which gave me the courage then to, again, try something new and say, well, maybe this will be better. And then, and then that's what I was looking for. I was really looking for kind of that excitement within myself, but also like this better, like clicking, if you will, where I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I love that. So much of that resonates for me too. This, having come up through academia, faculty member, and then kind of at a point, loving it for a time, but then at a point going, wait, is this my place? I mean, it's a great place. It's a great path. I was at a phenomenal institution, right? But then also that dissonance really of what I should feel and what I did feel in the role. And similarly going, wait, who am I? I need to figure this out and doing the hard work. And I think a lot of people ask me in my role now, how should I be thinking about other roles? I think I literally say what you say, which is the first thing is you have to understand who you are, know thyself, and what brings you energy, what value you bring, and how you want to put that value to use in the world.
Yeah, and it's the hardest thing, right? Like it's like such a simple question, but to me, this is like the crux of the matter. And even when I talk to again the students that I'm speaking to, like I gave a commencement speech at Northwestern, I was like, really connect with that inner voice. It's so hard to do if I put aside all the other voices in your head. I talk about that in the book too, like in all the should, woulds, and coulds, and our families and society and the cultural aspects. Like just focus on yourself and like what you want to do, and like that. If you can get clarity on that, it's just, and that becomes your North Star. That's just going to serve you so well. And just like we talk about like friendships and people in our lives, that they're in there for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. I think that's also true professionally. Like we may be thriving in a role for some period of time, but then say, well, this isn't for me at some point. And I think it's much more accepted now to make the leap and change. And especially for these next generations, I think it's going to be a lot more interdisciplinary, and they'll be making a lot more pivots in their career journey. But for us, I think it was definitely going out there on a limb at times.
I think that's right. And you're saying something that's just so powerful. I just want to double click on it. It's this periodic reassessment of where you are. And things will not always stay the same, right? And I think too few people do that on a regular, recurring basis. And if you pick your head up and reassess and go, I'm thrilled where I am, I'm putting my value to best use. I say to folks, put your head back down in the sand and work hard, right? But if you're not, then you got to do the hard work to figure out who you are, what you want to do. And, I think that's scary, right? You mentioned fear earlier. I think doing that hard work is actually quite hard and scary.
That's right. And that's okay too. Like know that we've all been through that tough journey. Like when I talk to people in biotech and pharma, every single one of them came from a different background. Like none of us said, oh, we want a career in biotech. It wasn't really on our radar. So, in that industry, it's really easy to say, oh, like we all came from different backgrounds and we all have these career pivots and, took the different, decision, the different trees on the decision tree path. But, I think I had someone advise me, every 7 years we should reassess. It probably could be even more frequent than that. But, it's always good to like take a step back and say, okay, is this what I want to continue doing? And the other thing I want to say is nothing is wasted. Because you use everything that you're learning along.
100% agree.
And sometimes it's surprising. You'll think 2 roles back and be like, oh, actually that functional role I played actually is really serving me now. So, we continue to grow in all different facets of our professional and personal life, and all of that we bring to bear at every single new role we play.
I think you're absolutely right. We could just keep jamming forever. So we're a little dangerous here, but so let's. I mean, we're already kind of digging into the book, the mirror effect, which is just so awesome. You wrote this early in the book. Before you shine brightly for the outside world, you must see yourself clearly. I mean, we're kind of getting to my question. We've been getting to my question, but like, how and when did you realize that for yourself?
I think it was when I was really playing C-level roles in the small startups. I found when I was in the earlier stages of my career in medicine, and then of course in the biotech pharma space, like I knew what my job was. I had great managers and people like it was a structured roles, and I also knew what my next career goals were, and I put my head down, I worked hard, I delivered, and things tended to go well in general. But I found when I was stepping into these higher levels and roles of leadership, these upper echelons, if you will, I
Hmm.
really found like the environments were less familiar to me. I didn't really understand the politics of what was going on. I didn't know exactly what was happening around me at times. And I didn't feel like I was as prepared for those roles and those environments. And I would actually argue that sometimes the things that served us in getting into those rooms and the seat at the table aren't necessarily going to serve us when we're in those rooms and having that seat at the table trying to, be our best, most powerful self. And nor was I really, having, good role models and mentors and sponsors or like what I call the personal board directors to help me understand this. I feel like, as women and people with different backgrounds, sometimes we don't have like that organic mentoring and sponsorship that occurs for some of our male allies, whether that's some sports teams or the different organizations they've been in, or people that they've known that have played like really senior executive roles where they explain, well, this is how these boards work. I mean, I don't think we just have as much access to those types of people, resources, coaching. So I found when I was stepping, ironically, into these higher levels of leadership where I've actually done a lot and already accomplished a lot, where I was facing more of what I call the FIDs, the fear, insecurity, doubt, and shame. Like that was coming up for me more and more. And that was kind of holding me back. And then I was kind of struggling, trying to understand the dynamics in the room at the board meeting and how best to negotiate and influence and leverage. Because many times we're influencing without authority in these types of environments because you're dealing with very powerful people who are quite successful, and who, have a lot of independence. And you're really trying to build trust, credibility, and work with them. And I just didn't feel as prepared as I could have been. And that's part of why I wrote this book, so that others following me would learn from these lessons I've had and be like smart and again, prepared for these rooms.
Share a story, if you will, of a time when, I mean, looking back, you're so accomplished now. And it's so interesting, right, to hear a leader say, I was afraid. I did feel shame. I did feel unaccomplished in these rooms that you had earned your right to be in. But maybe share a story of where that came to life.
Well, for example, this is a kind of common theme that for first-time CEOs, when you step into the CEO role, it's a big transition because you're typically coming from a role where you were the expert, like you were either the functional expert or like a team expert, like you were leading something and you were very into the weeds, the details, and you knew everything about that program. You knew everything about what was going on, and you were making a lot of the decisions day in day out. But when you transition to like a role, like a CEO role or a board director role or a board chair role, you don't know all those details, right? So you have to build a team, you have to delegate to that team, you have to trust them, and you still have to be involved because you are accountable for all the decisions, but that's not your responsibility to do it day in, day out. So how do you make that transition really effectively? And how do you, again, grow and mentor and sponsor people and just develop your team the best way possible while making sure you're executing with the same excellence that you did when you were playing that role, because typically, when you're getting these promotions, it's because you were really good at your job, and so, and I really advocate that for people too, that, younger generations, like find out what you're really good at, what you excel in and do that, because we do need to differentiate ourselves in terms of where our excellence is. And that's a big value for me, excellence. And so I know like I have these areas of excellence that I really, I think I excel in, but then how do I continue to leverage that but still create space for others? And also what I found when I stepped into these other leadership roles is like I still took everything very personally. So I had such accountability. But then when things didn't go well, I would just start beating myself up. And that wasn't serving anybody. So if you're in these senior roles and if something goes wrong and you're like, oh wow, I did miss that timeline or that didn't go well. Oh my God, it's all my fault because I didn't make the right 5 decisions preceding this outcome. That again is not serving anybody, least of all yourself. It's not serving your company, your employees, your investors. So if you have these tendencies, like I call it the prison of perfectionism, and the things that drive you and you're operating in certain ways, and then you step into these other roles, if you're still doing that, that is not going to set you up for success when you're trying to run a company, for example.
Totally. Yeah. You talk about having brutal honesty balanced with profound compassion, right, for yourself. And some of it is looking internally at some of those things that you're carrying with you that, maybe don't set you up for success. I love the part in your book where you talk about triggers, and it totally resonated for me. I think disrespect or being disrespected was the one that you named. For me personally, it's being underestimated. I hate it when people think I can't do a thing, and it is. I was reflecting as I was reading the book on that, but talk about the triggers too, and the things that set you off in these environments where you're the leader, but there's something inside you which is holding you back because of the way maybe you react to the people around you.
Yeah. And I think it's so important. Again, one of the big objectives of my book is just to raise awareness of these concepts and for us to do some of that inner work. Because again, I had done a lot of inner work. Like I had a lot of executive coaches. I was really fortunate coming from large pharma and large biotech. Like I had a lot of development training, which was amazing. And I actually did think I was a pretty emotionally intelligent person that has self-awareness and awareness of others. But I still, was
Still work to be done.
still working on all this. It's really like a lifelong journey, of course. But I talk about these triggers because again, I wasn't even aware that I was, being triggered and reactive in certain ways. And so again, when you get into like senior leadership roles, and this is true for like different environments, of course, but if someone's speaking to you in a really disrespectful manner, or if you're facing some microaggressions. And again, when you're working with powerful people, people don't really sometimes care how they're speaking to you and they're used to getting things done and, they're protecting their investments and, people are coming at things from all different areas. And again, when you're in an operating world or working in like a large corporation, there's a specific phenotype. But when you go into startup world and you're talking to investors and all different types of people, they're coming from it in all different ways. And, sometimes you're just not prepared for that. So if someone's saying something to you and you're not centered and calm and authentic and really knowing yourself, you're like having some blind spots and, and you're getting triggered because they're pressing some of your buttons and then you're reactive. You're not being your most powerful, authentic self and leader in that moment, And so one of the major epiphanies I had as I stepped into these really, significant leadership roles, whether on the executive team or at the board level, is that you really need to do that work so that you are center grounded and really, again, objective when you're kind of assessing environments. You can understand what's going on around you and you could decide the best course of action to pursue. But if you're in your mind or caught up in your thoughts and you're being reactive or triggered, I don't use that word lightly, but if there's something's in you that's not sitting well and you're feeling or you're creating more doubt in yourself, then again, you're just not going to show up as your best self. And so it's like an interplay between what's going on inside of us and maybe things in conditioning and trauma that we carry in us for long periods of time, way after that initial event occurred, which is often early in our childhood or, in earlier stages of our career. We don't even know that we're still dealing with that or that kind of left an impression on us in a negative manner. So if we're dealing with that and then we have that internally and then we're dealing with some challenges externally, which happens, especially as you go into these higher leadership roles. And I want everyone else to be well prepared for that because it's just reality. It's part of what's even happening in the environments today, as we know, with the new geopolitical climate. So this is our reality. We need to be really prepared and understand it and also know that it's not us. It's not us.
Yeah, so perfect segue. Sorry, finish your point.
No, there's nothing wrong with us, But we need to, again, show up as our best powerful self to be able to deal and handle this and assess it correctly. So there's interplay that occurs between what I call the inner and the outer. And that's occurring all the time because we're filtering what's happening externally through our biases. We have our biases and our filters that we're, viewing the world through. And the more clear and objective that can be, and the more centered and grounded you can be as you're doing that, the more it's going to serve you as a leader.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was about to say, it's such a wonderful segue into sort of part 2 of the book, right? Which is once you have understood yourself, what your triggers are, what your biases are, and you feel very centered, then you have to turn to the mirror towards the outside world, right? And understand that there are different environments that impact how we react, how we behave. So I love your thoughts on, how you've thought about the world we live in and the different types of situations that you might come across that have an external impact on how we present ourselves as leaders.
Yes. And I think this is so important. I've been going around the country, even globally and talking about my experiences and also hearing from others, what their experiences are, what they're dealing with every day, like now. And this is from senior leaders, this is from, again, people taking their first corporate job. Some of them coming out of graduate school, taking a corporate job and going back to graduate school and saying, oh my God, what was that? Yeah. And not even being prepared to go understand what's happening around them. And so, the first part of the book, it ends really with us understanding that we are powerful beyond measure. That we actually don't have to do anything to fit in or belong. Like we already belong. We alone are enough. And I want to paint that picture and help people understand that that is our truth, because the truth will set us free. And to do the work till we really feel that, embody it. It's like in our bones, we really understand that. And it's not trivial to get to that point. And it's okay. It's a journey, but to know that that is where we're heading. Similarly, externally, in those environments we find ourselves in, I talk a lot, first of all, about negative environments, because I'm trying to describe what potential toxic work environments look like. So then people can say, oh, wow, I understand that this is not a great environment. Again, it's not me. So I talk about 3 examples of toxic work environments, like really cultures based out of fear, like a fear-based workplace, a cutthroat competitive type of culture where it's not healthy competition, but really cutthroat backstabbing type of culture. And then the other aspect I talk about is gaslighting, because again, sometimes people don't even know what gaslighting is. And when you don't know it, you're not going to be able to identify it. And again, you could really be a troll, there's something wrong with you. So I've even spoken to other CEO sisters who are explaining an environment to me, something that happened to me, and this happened to me as well personally. And someone explained it to me, well, I think you're being gaslit. And I was like, what are you talking about? So I talk about these types of concepts just so people deal with them and understand them. But then I also talk about what a good, excellent, thriving environment looks like. And when you find yourself in a really amazing, productive, thriving environment where you feel safe, there's psychological safety, and you're giving it your all, and you love working with your peers, and you're really inspired by the leaders of the company, like that's amazing. And once you know what that looks like, you never want to go back.
Yeah, and absolutely.
And I actually just want to paint the picture. People know you actually can find a work environment like that. And that's what we should strive to, because life is short. We all should strive to feel that way inside ourselves, but also find environments and work with people. Find your people that you can really thrive with, and you can support one another in your growth. So that's really the picture I wanted to paint in the book to, again, help people identify and navigate challenging work environments, but also have this goal to find an amazing, thriving environment to work in.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you don't know what good looks like until you step into an area, into an environment I guess people know what bad looks like, but then when you see it from the other side, I've been in all of them, as like you. And I have found my value and power diminished dramatically in environments that were imperfect. And then I can see how I thrive in environments where there's collaboration and caring and honesty and the right type of competitiveness, not cutthroat competitiveness, and where you support one another and want one another's success. And I can function at 100+% of myself in those environments. And it's so interesting to have experienced the contrast and to know how critical the environment is
Yeah.
for one's success.
And that's so beautiful. Like because when you do know it, again, it's just, we always do know, but again, when we don't really understand what's going on around us and we're dealing with our own internal struggles and challenges, then we just operate and we settle for less. And there's no reason to tolerate bad behavior and inappropriate behavior. But again, when we're in our early stages of career, we don't really maybe recognize that. So, helping people to understand this, to know that it's not them, to navigate effectively, to maybe leave those toxic environments earlier than many of us did, because we were sticking it out and trying to make it work because we're so comfortable being uncomfortable. We just said, well, this is what I'm used to. You don't even think there's something better. But just like we all have gone through different types of relationships, and when we finally get into a healthy, productive, thriving, great reciprocal relationship, whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship, we're like, oh my God, this is what it's glorious. Like.
Exactly.
You're never going to tolerate that shitty relationship you had, So
once you see good, it's so refreshing, right? And it is a nice reminder that there are great environments out there, right? And that we deserve to be in environments which bring us joy and satisfaction and where we can thrive and be our best selves. So it's a wonderful reminder.
Yes. Set a high bar. Set a high bar for yourself,
Totally.
just like you do for everyone you love. Don't settle for less for yourself.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. Well, let's get to the third part of the book then, which is really, if you've shined the mirror on yourself and you've come to know yourself, shine the mirror on the environment around you and understand its impact on your success and your behavior. How do you then set yourself up for success, which is really part 3. So there were so many wonderful pearls in this section. Would just love to hear what you think are kind of the top few as people are setting off on their own journeys to set themselves up for success.
Yes, I wanted to build upon the learnings from the first 2 sections, like you said, hold up your own mirror and really kind of surround yourself with mirror, understand your environment, to then step into your power and bring it all together and make a life worth mirroring and set yourself up and others for success. And that section is like, again, building upon these, hopefully the work that we're doing, to the inner and outer work that we're doing. But then focusing on some key areas, which I felt like I just didn't have a lot of experience with, or I felt, I wasn't really well versed in. I thought, let's focus on a few areas to kind of make this come to life and help us bring it all together. So then we can be that thriving, authentic, powerful self, and helping those around us as well. And so I focused on 3 areas there. The first really critical area, which again is something I just never did very well personally, was to surround yourself with mirrors or build your personal board of directors. Have a strong, supportive network of people that are going to be with you throughout your life and your career, professional and personal journey. Find your people early on and like keep growing them, nurturing them, and just how important it is for us to all have that supportive community that surrounds us, that helps us make these decisions in our career and also helps us keep on track, helps us be honest with ourselves and celebrates us, so that again, we can, really overcome whatever inner challenges we're having.
I would say I'll interrupt you there a second, on the personal board of directors, which I love that term. I use it myself. And our mutual friend, Manal Patel, has been on my personal board of directors for a very long time. I would make the comment that I think the composition of that board can change over time depending on your needs.
That's right.
And I've had people roll on and roll off of my personal board. I've had people sit as observers for a very long time, right? So I wonder if you would agree that, you got to have your board, but your needs may shift, and the people that come and go, people may come and go depending on what you need of them at different times in your life and career.
Yes, absolutely. This is all very dynamic, and kind of getting back to that reason, season, lifetime, analogy. Like and you'll know it too. It's and then I think the aspects are like, how do you nurture and keep in touch with people? It has to be kind of a proactive, intentional effort as well. So I have like a framework I use to help people get going. But it's a lot of outreach, kind of seeing who you connect with organically, because a lot of this is organic. You can't force a strong mentorship relationship for yourself or someone you're trying to mentor, these things have to be natural. And sometimes that fades away over time or new relationships arise. So I think, again, following, your compass while you're navigating, building that board, that network, that community, and then sustaining it and continuing to evolve it over time. Also depending on the directions you go, because you're going to evolve and you're going to need different advice and things that you can't even, foresee even 10 years from now. I've given up on the 5 and 10-year plan in terms of like having a specific, I have it all figured out. It's more, I just kind of keep evolving and it's dynamic. So yeah, absolutely. But then you also know sometimes you have your people that are with you for your whole life. And a lot of times it's friends and family and people who really know you when you were young before, you knew anything. They can keep you honest, so, everyone serves their role. And, again, like that's really up to you to kind of continue to cultivate, but do it intentionally, know that's important for you to have. And there's nothing wrong for you to ask people for help. We are not meant to do this alone. We're human and we're meant to have a community. That was a big lesson learned from me. I thought I had to prove and struggle and fight all by myself. But now I know that actually wasn't the case and it isn't the case. And it's a beautiful thing to have people, helping you and you helping them. And it's really what life is about. So definitely, I completely agree with everything you said. Like it's dynamic, it's evolving, it's a living thing that you kind of continue to nurture.
So the first was to build your personal board of directors, have your people around you. What were the other tips that you would say?
And the second big area was around negotiations, and how to negotiate authentically without compromising your integrity. And knowing that it's so important for you to be able to negotiate. We are negotiating all the time. So whether that's you're negotiating your salary or your whole compensation package, your contracts, the most important time is when you're joining a company. That's when you have the most leverage. You must look out for yourself and you must be well educated and negotiate well. So I have a lot of tips around how to negotiate well, to really be clear on what you're trying to get out of a certain situation, to understand the other diverse perspectives around the table and what's important to them, to not lose your integrity. So, stick with your values, in terms of your transparency, your honesty, and, whatever values are important to you, like kind of adhere to those values and not have shame about negotiating and demanding what you want for. You absolutely deserve those things. So things like that I talk a lot about in terms of, best practices in negotiation, which again, it took me a while to kind of hone those skills. It's still an evolving, skill set that I'm continuing to work on. But knowing that you have to be good at negotiations is really important. And again, not shying away from it. And the third big area was around harnessing our presence. And when I talk about that, I talk about it from a place of authenticity. So I'm not saying you need to adopt other ways of showing up and, what sometimes people call gravitas or, that executive presence, which sometimes I think can have a lot of bias within it. I'm talking about really, truly owning your authentic self and showing up in all your power and glory situations. And again, not being ashamed about that, but owning that and doing what is needed in a specific environment, being smart about it, really knowing the audience. But again, bringing those elements of yourself because you have to, because true power comes from that authenticity. And so much of communication is nonverbal. So the way you show up, the way you deal with your neurolinguistic programming, the way you speak to yourself and others, the way you carry yourself, all these things are really important in the business world, personally and professionally. I shouldn't just say in the business world, but I think it's really important to spend time talking about that. It's like, don't apologize. Many of us are always apologizing. Don't apologize. You don't need to apologize. Things like that. Like really own that. Own whatever things, and then do those practices that help get you into that right mindset. Whether that's the power pose or affirmations or whatever works for you, just do it. Make sure you're doing it and making sure you're showing up in your most powerful way.
Sometimes it's the littlest things, like where you sit yourself at the table. You will never find me sitting on the chairs that are around the edge of the wall. Like someone can move me, but I will put myself at the table 100%, right? So little things like that that can make a real difference in how you feel about yourself and how others perceive you in those rooms where you want to, show your power.
That's right. You want to be visible, you want to be visible, and we all do matter. And yeah, and like exactly. And again, follow your instincts. Like you're like, no, like I'm important for this conversation. I'm going to sit at this table.
Yeah.
And, and I absolutely belong here, and
Yeah.
and again, and if we're not feeling it, that's okay. Have compassion
Absolutely.
for yourself, but do what you need to do to get to that point so that you can again show up. Because it's important. It's important that you sat at that table.
100%. We could go on and on forever, like 100 other questions that I won't get to, but I'll end with this question set, which is like there's such a clear desire to lift up and help others in your book, right? It's taking all the lessons you've learned and saying, I want others to be able to achieve what they deserve to achieve. Talk about where that comes from, and maybe talk about the sisterhood a little bit, and how you're now dedicating your life through this work and other work to helping lift others to achieve their greatest successes.
Well, I feel very fortunate that I do have a pretty strong spiritual foundation, practice, and background through my family. So I was exposed to a lot of spiritual teachings in the Hindu way of life, but I found that it resonates with so many different religions and cultures. It's so universal. And I should spend a year, I took a year off in medical school and actually lived in an ashram and actually studied the Vedas very rigorously and with a lot of intention. And through a lot of that early work I had done, I found some purpose and values and a North Star for me, which is really around being of service. So there's this wonderful Sanskrit word called seva that really captures this idea of being a contributor and what sometimes we call selfless service. But it's not really selfless because the person you're actually serving the most is yourself, because you grow through your contribution and helping others. And it's really captured probably better by like helping others and being of service and being a contributor without significant expectations in return. Mm-hmm. And while doing that work, and we also use this word karma yoga, while doing that work, you're growing so much. You're becoming more objective, more free, more joy-filled, because helping others brings so much joy, and less kind of ego, tied to ego and, kind of self-absorbed type of tendencies. That again has been like a lifelong, pursuit of mine, and a North Star for me and a core value. So I pursued that within medicine, trying to help my patients and their families, more on an individual level, and then broader impact in the pharmaceutical space, developing meaningful therapies that are going to help hopefully millions of patients around the world. I'm so honored that I worked on lots of different great medicines that are being actively used today. And it's like, oh my God, it's amazing that I had a part in that. And then of course, to our families, our children, and, setting them up for success and help trying to make sure they're going to be contributors in the world as well. Now to this advocacy work. And this advocacy work, it's been so rewarding. And I think what happened is, as I mentioned, is as I was having all these realizations, stepping into these higher echelons of leadership, where I was like, oh, I made it. But then you realize, well, actually I didn't. And actually I'm, my FIDs are in full swing right now.
Yeah.
Saying, well, wow, it's just time. We've got to talk about this more transparently, and we have to share our stories. And we have to, so that we all don't feel so alone in our suffering, because shame breeds in isolation. Brené Brown has done a lot of amazing work around shame. And I followed her for years. And I started to fully realize, how much, sharing of our experiences will actually break through these cycles of shame, from generational trauma, societal, cultural, all these things that we deal with. I think that's when I said, wow, this is really important to address. And so kind of coming out of COVID, I did two things. One, I started writing this book for my younger self, the book I wish I had, bringing everything I knew to bear into like one central location, trying to be as helpful as I could. And second is the formation of this group, which turned out to be the Biotech CEO Sisterhood. So we brought in we were trying to build a networking community of women CEOs, because we were all doing it by ourselves and we didn't have a great supportive network. And out of the first weekend summit we had, the Biotech CEO Sisterhood was born. So we started with 25 women. 3 of us kicked it off. 25 women came to our first summit, and the Sisterhood was born. And now we're over 450 women CEOs, public and private CEOs, and they are kicking butt. I can tell you. We've had so many amazing exits, acquisitions, IPOs, financings that have all been led by women and their teams. And it's just absolutely proving that we totally belong at these tables. We're so experienced and so talented and brilliant. It's really been an amazing journey. So all of this has kind of gone hand in hand and has really informed the writing of the book. And then a lot of the writing of the book has kind of informed, the way we've developed the sisterhood and built these communities and how giving we are to one another. And now we're forming CXO Sisterhood. So we have a CMO Sisterhood, a CFO, CSO, CHRO, so women executives. And then we're trying to bring up the next generation. So it's just amazing, intentional effort to celebrate each other and to create these safe, inclusive environments where we can thrive and absolutely know what our new normal feels like, which is one where we're just being our authentic selves and loving every moment of it.
I love that. It's a perfect place for us to end. Like I said, we could talk forever. So much of what you've written and what you say and the way you carry yourself resonates for me. Just trying to follow in your footsteps bit by bit. So I am sure your words will resonate for so many listeners. I cannot thank you enough for sharing your story, sharing the wisdom of your book. People should go buy it and read it in its entirety because there's way more wisdom in the actual text than we could even touch on here. And just gratitude for you focusing on seva and trying to lift up others around you so that they too can see the kind of successes you have seen. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Reena. I love what you're doing. As you know, I'm a huge fan, and I'm so thrilled to be here with you today. And yeah, I'm just here with you. So we'll figure it out. We'll continue to work on all this together.
Exactly. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Leadership Rounds, where clinician executives share wisdom and insights on what it means to be an exceptional leader in healthcare. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please subscribe, comment, and share with your friends and fellow leaders in healthcare. Join us next time for another dose of leadership wisdom. Until then, I'm Dr. Reena Pande. Thanks for listening.